Hey there, and welcome. Tonight, we step away from deadlines, scrolling, and loud news, and we climb somewhere higher, where the air is thin and quiet. If these calm myths help your mind loosen, you can gently tap like and subscribe so you can find this kind of rest again. But only if it truly helps you. Now, get comfortable. Let the room be as it is. Let the pillow support you. If your mind keeps running, you do not have to chase it. You can simply watch it slow down, like a cart rolling to a stop on a gentle hill. Take a slow breath in and a slower breath out. Notice the small places in your body that still hold the day. The jaw, the brow, the hands. Let them soften. There is nothing to solve right now. There is only the next sentence. And the next. Like footsteps that do not hurry. Imagine you are outside, under open sky, and the day is ending without any demand from you. The air has cooled. Somewhere a bird settles into a branch. Somewhere a door closes. There is a long, easy breeze, and you can feel it in your chest, like a soft wave. In your mind, a mountain rises Mount Olympus, far in northern Greece, a real peak with real stone and real snow, but wrapped in mist so often that it looks like a doorway to somewhere else. The sun has slipped low. The light is amber and gentle. Olive trees below are dark shapes. The sea, far away, is a quiet sheet of silver. Above, the sky turns from blue to violet, then to a deeper ink. And one by one, the first stars begin to blink as if they are waking up. You do not need to climb this mountain. You only need to look at it from a distance and let it be tall for you. Let it hold the idea that there is a place where your worries cannot follow, because they are too small and too heavy to drift up into the clouds. The Greeks looked at Olympus and felt that same gentle distance. They felt that the summit belonged to another kind of life, one that did not pay taxes, did not age, did not wake up with sore backs and anxious thoughts. They made stories to explain that feeling, stories to make the night less empty. And in the glow of firelight, with a dark pressing in around a village, a tale about gods was like a warm blanket, not because it was always kind, but because it was familiar. So tonight, we borrow that old comfort. We borrow the mountain, the clouds, the stars, and the idea that somewhere above, a different rhythm is playing, slow and steady. To the ancient Greeks, Olympus was not just a mountain. It was sacred geography, a place where the world felt close to the unseen. They did not picture their gods as perfect or all-knowing in the way later religions sometimes describe divinity. Their gods had power, yes, but they also had moods, pride, jealousy, laughter, and very poor conflict skills. That may sound strange, but it is part of why these myths can feel comforting. The stories admit that even the highest beings can be messy, and still the world keeps turning. A storm ends. A harvest comes. A ship returns. A child is born. Life continues. So picture Olympus not as a silent heaven, but as a glowing palace made more of atmosphere than architecture. Poets speak of bright halls, cloud gates, shining floors, and thrones that look like polished stone after rain. But the details are always a little hazy. Like a dream you almost remember. That is fitting. Olympus is not meant to be mapped. It is meant to be felt. In the Great Hall, torches burn without smoke. A breeze moves through columns as if the building itself is breathing. On a long table there is ambrosia, the food of immortality. Some say it tastes like honey and warm bread. Some say it is a fragrance you somehow eat with your spirit. Nectar is poured into cups of gold, and it gleams like sunlight trapped in liquid. When the gods drink, they do not get old. They do not get sick. They do not truly heal in the way mortals heal, because their wounds close like ripples. You can almost hear the sound of a feast beginning, plates sliding, a jug being set down, soft music from a lyre, a few voices, low at first, then brighter as the cups are refilled. And if you lean closer in your mind, you hear what every family table holds: gossip, teasing, old arguments, and the quiet pride of being together. On Olympus, the gossip is about heroes and cities. The teasing is about who won the last contest of strength or beauty. The arguments are about honor, about insult, about who deserves praise, and who should be punished. Immortality does not make them calm. In these stories, a god can be offended by a small insult and remember it for decades. A goddess can love a city the way a person loves a home, and take it personally when that city chooses another patron. A god can swear an oath and then find a clever way around it. And still, through all this, there is order of a kind. Each Olympian holds a role, like a job in a household that never ends. Thunder and rain, sea and quake, crops and seasons, craft and fire, music and prophecy, love and desire, messages and boundaries, war and fear, home and hearth. Down below, mortals look up and wonder why the world feels both beautiful and unfair. The gods, in myth, are one answer, not a perfect answer, but a story-shaped one. If a storm ruins a crop, perhaps Zeus was angry. If a ship sinks, perhaps Poseidon was in a bad mood. If a city thrives, perhaps Athena smiled on it. If a marriage holds, perhaps Hera guarded it. These explanations were not science. They were comfort, and also warning. They said life is bigger than you, but you can still speak to it. You can still offer a prayer. You can still make sense of it in a tale. And because the gods felt human, people could argue with them, bargain with them, even joke about them, while still respecting their power. That is a strange balance, but it kept the myths alive for hundreds of years. When people today say the 12 Olympians, they often imagine a clean list, like a poster on a classroom wall. But the Greeks did not always agree on the guest list. Stories shift as they travel. That is part of their charm. Still, the familiar names return again and again, like stars you recognize even when clouds pass. There is Zeus, king of the sky, who speaks in thunder when he wants attention. There is Hera, queen of marriage, who guards dignity like a flame. There is Poseidon, whose mood can be calm water or a broken ship. Demeter keeps the grain growing and the bread possible. Athena watches with clear eyes and teaches the mind to build. Apollo brings music, healing, and sharp prophecies that twist like vines. Artemis moves through forests and moonlight, protecting the wild and the young. Ares is the raw shout of battle, not strategy, just heat. Hephaestus is the steady work of fire, the hammer that makes tools and armor. Aphrodite is beauty, desire, and the pull that can turn a strong person foolish. Hermes is a grin at the crossroads, a guide on the road, a messenger who can slip through locked doors. And then there is Dionysus, pouring wine and letting people loosen their tight grip on who they think they must be. Or Hestia, the quiet hearth that holds a home together without asking for praise. The Greeks did not just tell stories about them. They built temples. They held festivals. They poured wine and burned incense and asked for help with very ordinary things: safe travel, healthy children, good weather, fair judgment, and a little courage on a hard day. In a busy port, sailors might whisper to Poseidon before the waves carried them out. In a city, a craftsperson might nod to Hephaestus before striking hot metal. In a household, a family might honor Hestia with the first bite of a meal. And when a poet sang in a crowded theater, it was often Dionysus who received the honor, because masks and stories belonged to him. Myths were entertainment, yes, but they were also a kind of map for the heart. They explained why pride can ruin a person, why love can change a life, why anger burns, why patience matters. They showed consequences in bright, dramatic colors, so ordinary people could feel the lesson without being preached at. The gods were like the weather of the soul storms: sunlight, fog, sudden wind, and a calm night when it finally settles. Tonight, we will drift through this world slowly, not as a lecture, not as a test, but as a gentle walk through a story palace. We will look at what the Olympians were really like, and why the Greeks kept repeating these tales beside fires and in temples, in marketplaces and at festivals, century after century. We will begin with the king of the mountain, because thunder is hard to ignore, and then we will meet the queen beside him, whose quiet pride can be sharper than lightning. After that, we will follow the sound of waves to the sea god, and then sink into the deep, still ground where another brother rules in silence. We will walk through olive groves with the goddess of wisdom. Listen for a note of music that becomes a prophecy, and step into a moonlit forest where a deer moves without noise. We will pause by a forge where fire is not wild, but useful. We will glance at the bright, dangerous mirror of beauty, and then let a messenger god lead us down a road that turns without warning. These are long stories, but you do not have to hold them tightly. You can let them carry you. As we go, you can allow your attention to soften. You do not have to stay alert. You do not have to take notes. If your thoughts wander, that is fine. Myths were made to be heard and half forgotten, then remembered again later, like a song. So let the mountain air cool your forehead. Let the distant lyre fade in and out like a soft tide. High above the mortal world, the torches are being lit, and the clouds are closing the doors with a gentle hush. Somewhere inside, an immortal family settles into its endless evening. And if you listen carefully, you may notice something else, a strange kindness under all the drama. Because these stories do not demand that you be strong all the time. They only ask that you keep going, one small step at a time, until you can rest. So rest now, gently. The mountain can hold the sky for you. Let Olympus be distant. Let your own room be safe. Let the myth begin. Outside those cloud doors, the mortal world is getting quiet too. A village down on the plain is lighting its own small hearths. Smoke rises in thin threads and then disappears. Dogs curl into sleep. Fishermen pull boats onto sand and hear only the soft drag of wood. Somewhere, a child is being carried to bed, and a parent is whispering a story that begins with, "Long ago." That simple phrase is a bridge. It lets the mind step away from what is urgent and step into what is timeless. On Olympus, the same kind of bridge exists, but it is made of cloud and legend. At the edge of the palace, there might be a balcony where you can look down through the mist. You see the coastline, the dark sea, the faint curve of a road. You see tiny fires like orange dots, and you realize how small human troubles look from this height. Not unimportant, just small, like pebbles in a wide riverbed. If you could walk those halls, you would hear footsteps that do not hurry. You would smell something like warm resin and fresh rain. You would hear quiet laughter, the clink of cups, and the occasional sharp word that fades as quickly as it rises. Even arguments become soft at a distance. And perhaps that is what we need right now, distance. A little height, a little myth, not to escape life forever, but to let your nervous system unclench for a while. So take this mountain as a calm place in your imagination. Let it be steady while your thoughts float. And if sleep arrives sooner than expected, that is perfectly fine. The gods will still be there, mid-conversation, mid-feast, forever paused in their golden dusk, ready to continue whenever you return. Now, before we meet any one god closely, linger for a moment on the feeling of the place. The marble is cool under bare feet. The air tastes faintly of snow and citrus. A curtain of cloud drifts past an open archway like slow-moving silk. Somewhere far off, you hear the soft ring of metal, perhaps a tool in a workshop, perhaps a cup set down on a table. This is the hour between day and night, when even immortals seem quieter, when the sky is neither bright nor fully dark. It is a gentle hour, and it is yours. In a moment, we will hear a slow roll of distant thunder, more like a drum than a threat, and we will see the king of Olympus settling into his seat of power. But for now, simply breathe, and let the mountain remain still. Let the edges of the day fade. Let your thoughts be clouds that pass and pass again. If you are still awake, you can follow my voice up the mountain. If you are already drifting, that is even better. Either way, Olympus is waiting, quiet and bright behind the mist. The story will keep moving softly, even if you stop listening for a while. We begin with a sound that the Greeks knew well, a low, distant thunder. Not the kind that demands you hide, but the kind that rolls far away, steady and slow, like a drum in another valley. It is almost soothing when it stays in the distance, because it reminds you that the sky is wide and the storm has room to breathe. If you are listening in bed, you might imagine that thunder as something harmless, like a far-off parade, a slow beat that helps your thoughts fall into rhythm. On Olympus, thunder often means Zeus is awake, and perhaps a little dramatic. Imagine the great hall again. The torches are low, their light warm and steady. The cups gleam. Somewhere someone refills a bowl of fruit that never empties. At the highest end of the table, a throne sits like a piece of the mountain itself, carved from cloud-bright stone. Zeus rests there, broad-shouldered, bearded, and watchful, not always stern, not always gentle, but always certain that the room belongs to him. In one hand he holds a scepter, in the other a thunderbolt, as if he needs a reminder of his own power. The air around him hums, the way the air hums before lightning, as if the sky is listening. An eagle, his sacred bird, might perch nearby in the myths, calm and sharp-eyed, not because Zeus needs help seeing, but because symbols matter on Olympus. A king is not only a person, he is a sign. Zeus is the sign that the world has an upper roof, a sky that holds everything in place. When ancient people saw a storm break and then pass, when they saw rain arrive and fields turn green again, they felt the presence of a ruler above, a force that could be angry, generous, unpredictable, and yet somehow reliable. It is easy to picture Zeus as only a tyrant, a loud ruler with a weapon. But the myths hold more than one version of him. Sometimes he is a judge who listens to please. Sometimes he is an exhausted father trying to keep a house full of impossible relatives from turning the curtains into smoke. Sometimes he is both in the same afternoon. The Greeks did not need their king of gods to be perfect. They needed him to be a symbol of order, the force that keeps the sky from falling, even when the family beneath it argues. So if the word king makes you tense, let it soften here. Think of Zeus not as a boss looming over you, but as an old story shape, a way the mind gives form to weather and fate. Tonight, his thunder can stay far away. It can be only atmosphere, only a backdrop for a quiet tale. Zeus did not inherit Olympus the way a calm prince inherits a calm throne. His story begins in an older darkness, before temples and cities, before polite prayers. He was born to the Titans, Kronos and Rhea. And Kronos had a terrible habit. He swallowed his children to prevent a prophecy. Each baby, taken into his belly like a secret locked away. Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon, one after another, gone from the light. Rhea, their mother, could not bear to lose them all. When Zeus was born, she hid him on the island of Crete and gave Kronos a stone wrapped in cloth. Kronos swallowed the stone, satisfied, never noticing the trick. Meanwhile, the baby Zeus grew in a cave, cared for by nymphs. In some stories, he was fed by Amalthea, a magical goat, and bees brought him honey, sweet and golden. The curates, wild, divine warriors, danced and clashed their shields to cover the sound of the infant crying, so Kronos would not hear. It is a strange image, noisy guards protecting a hidden baby, but it has a gentle message. Even in a world of monsters and prophecy, something small can be protected until it is ready. When Zeus was old enough, he returned with a plan. He made Kronos release his swallowed children, sometimes with a potion, sometimes with force, depending on the storyteller. His brothers and sisters came back into the world in a strange second birth, blinking and newly free. Then came the Titanomachy, the long war between the old gods and the new. For years the world shook with it. Mountain against mountain, sky against sky, until Zeus finally won. In many versions, Zeus did not win alone. He freed the Cyclopes and the 100-handed giants from captivity, and they gave him gifts. The Cyclopes forged his thunderbolt, bright and terrifying, the tool that made him unmistakable. Poseidon received a trident. Hades received a helm of darkness that could hide him even from divine eyes. Armed with these powers, and supported by his siblings, Zeus cast the Titans down into deep Tartarus, a prison beneath the underworld, farther than thought. After the war, the brothers drew lots for the realms. Zeus took the sky, Poseidon the sea, and Hades the world below. Zeus became king not because he was the oldest, but because he was clever, bold, and willing to take the heavy seat. And then he had to do the hard part, ruling, not just throwing lightning, but holding together a universe full of hungry forces. As king, Zeus carried more than thunder. He was the guardian of oaths, of hospitality, of the sacred rule that a stranger at your door should be offered water and food. The Greeks called that hospitality xenia, and it mattered deeply. If someone broke a promise, it was Zeus who noticed. If a host mistreated a guest, it was Zeus who cared. In the myths, even gods and kings fear the punishment for disrespecting a traveler, because any traveler might be a god in disguise. These details matter, because they show what the Greeks valued. They feared lightning, yes, but they also feared chaos in human life. So Zeus, for all his flaws, is also a kind of anchor. When people swore vows, when they made treaties, when they welcomed strangers, they spoke his name as if it could steady their hands. In that sense, he is not only storm, he is structure. And then we reach the part of Zeus that storytellers always circle back to. Like moths to a lamp, his love affairs, his disguises, his restless desire. In the myths, Zeus falls in love easily and often. He appears as a handsome stranger, or as a bull, or as a swan, or as a shower of golden light. Sometimes the stories feel romantic, sometimes uncomfortable, sometimes simply strange. What is clear is that these unions fill the world with heroes in trouble. You might have heard of Europa, carried across the sea by a gentle white bull that was Zeus in disguise, or Leda, visited by a swan beneath a quiet sky, or Danae, reached by golden light slipping through a locked room. These tales were not written to be tidy. They were written to connect families, cities, and kings to the divine. If a city could claim a founder as the child of Zeus, it gave that city a sense of importance, a mythic stamp of destiny. The children of Zeus become demigods, famous and doomed. Bright sparks that burn through stories, Heracles with his strength, Perseus with his daring, Minos with his kingship, Helen with the kind of beauty that starts wars. Zeus, in this way, is like a storm cloud that drops lightning in many places. Each strike creates a new tale, and each tale pulls more people into the mythic web. But every wandering story of Zeus has a shadow beside it. Because Zeus is married, Hera sits near him on Olympus, queen of the gods, goddess of marriage, protector of vows, and keeper of pride. If Zeus is thunder, Hera is a steady flame that can become a fierce fire when disrespected. Theirs is not a gentle partnership. It is a long, immortal bond with arguments that echo and then fade, only to return again later. Sometimes Hera plots against Zeus. Sometimes Zeus punishes Hera. Sometimes they reconcile, because time for them is endless, and even anger must eventually rest. The myths can be harsh here, but you can listen to them as symbols. They are stories about power and loyalty, about freedom and restraint, about the way a bond can hold even when it aches. Hera's anger is famous, and she often turns it toward Zeus's lovers and children. In one tale, Zeus hides a young woman named Io by turning her into a white cow, hoping Hera will not notice. Hera notices. She always notices. She asks for the cow as a gift and sets a many-eyed giant, Argus, to watch her. When Argus is later killed, Hera places his eyes on the feathers of her peacock, a quiet memorial that still shimmers in art and story. In another set of tales, she makes the life of Heracles difficult from the beginning, sending trials and trouble, as if she is testing the world to see whether it will reward betrayal or endure it. Yet Hera is not only jealousy, and Zeus is not only betrayal. They represent a strange balance in the Greek imagination, raw power and lawful structure, impulse and tradition. On nights like this, with the torches low and the mountain breathing slowly, you can imagine Zeus leaning back in his throne, the thunder quiet for once, and Hera watching the room with calm eyes, as if she is counting every promise made and broken. In a moment, we will step closer to her story and listen to the kind of strength that does not shout. For now, let the distant thunder stay far away. Let it be only a soft sound in the background, a reminder that above the clouds, the king of Olympus is awake. Tonight, for a little while, he is letting the world be peaceful. And you can let your own thoughts grow quieter too. Think of Zeus in the old epics, sitting above battlefields with a gaze that is not quite kind and not quite cruel. In some stories, he weighs the fates of heroes as if destiny can be measured like grain on a scale. He watches wars rise and fall, not because he loves suffering, but because the myths need a ruler who reminds everyone that there are limits. Mortals can be brave, clever, even noble, but they cannot break the roof of the world. At the same time, Zeus can be surprisingly patient. There is the tale of Prometheus, the Titan who stole fire for humanity. Zeus punishes him. Yes, chaining him so an eagle can return again and again. But the story also suggests that even punishment has an end. That order can bend when time is long enough. There is also the flood myth, where Zeus cleanses the world with water when human cruelty grows too heavy. These are not bedtime images in their sharpest form, but you can hear them as distant thunder, reminders that the ancients took morality seriously, and they imagined the sky itself responding. And then there is the way people honored Zeus in stone and gold. In the sanctuary of Olympia, they built a great temple for him, and inside, artists crafted an enormous seated statue. The king of gods sat in calm majesty, holding symbols of rule, so large that he almost filled the room, as if the roof would lift if he stood. Travelers came from far cities to see it, and the sight was meant to make them feel small in a peaceful way. The way a mountain makes you small without insulting you. Tonight, you do not have to travel. You can let that image be gentle in your mind, like a candlelit figure carved from story itself. Zeus is not reaching for you. He is not looking into your room. He is simply part of the background of an old world, like wind, like clouds, like the far rumble of weather. And as the thunder fades again, notice how quiet the hall becomes. The cups are set down. The music lowers. Even Zeus, with all his force, has moments of stillness. That is what we borrow. We borrow his pause, not his storm. We borrow the feeling of the mountain holding steady. In the next part, we will stay with Hera a little longer, not to stir up conflict, but to understand the calm strength that endures, the kind of strength that can protect a home, a vow, a child, even when everything around it is loud. Before we move on, let the idea of order settle gently. Order does not mean perfection. It can simply mean that things return. Storms pass, tempers cool, nights turn into mornings. That is the quiet promise hidden inside even the loudest myths. So if your day felt chaotic, imagine Zeus not as a shout, but as the slow turning of the sky itself. Imagine his throne as a high place where arguments are only echoes, and where, for a moment, nothing is demanded of you. Let your breathing match that slow turning, in and out. If thoughts appear, let them pass like clouds over the peak. The palace lights stay warm. The mountain stays still, and the distant thunder becomes softer and softer, until it is only a memory of sound. Somewhere below, a traveler looks up from a road and sees lightning far on the horizon. They do not panic. They simply notice it, the way you might notice a thought and then let it go. To them, it is a sign that the heavens are alive. To you tonight, it can be a lullaby of distance. And in that distance, you can feel safe enough to loosen your grip on the day. Let the story hold the weight for you. Let the king of storms keep his storms to himself. Let the air on Olympus be cool and clean. And if your eyelids are heavy, you can let them be heavy. You are allowed to rest, quietly without effort. Settle a little deeper into your pillow, and let the room grow quiet around you. The thunder from Zeus has drifted away for now, and the great halls of Olympus feel calmer. Torches burn with a firm, golden breath. Somewhere, a lyre is being played softly, not to impress anyone, just to fill the silence with something gentle. Tonight, we turn toward Hera, the queen of the gods. If Zeus is the storm, Hera is the polished stone that stands after the storm has passed. She is the goddess of marriage, of oaths made in public and kept in private. She is also the guardian of women, of childbirth, of the fragile. brave work of building a home in a world that can be loud and uncertain. Like many Olympians, Hera began her story as a child of the Titans, Cronus and Rhea, and like her siblings, she was swallowed by her father, tucked into darkness by a fear that did not know how to love. When Zeus later forced Cronus to release his children, Hera returned to the world as if stepping out of a long, strange dream. She grew into a goddess of dignity, a figure who held her head high, even when those around her behaved like quarrelsome guests at an endless banquet. In the old myths, Zeus pursued Hera with all the patience of a lightning bolt. He wanted her beside him, not only as his wife, but as his equal in rule. Hera, however, was not easily won. Some tales say she resisted, watching him carefully, testing whether his promises had weight. And then comes that odd little story, the one where Zeus turns himself into a shivering cuckoo bird, helpless in the rain. Hera, moved by pity, draws the bird close to warm it, and in an instant, Zeus reveals himself. It is not romantic by modern standards, but myth is rarely polite. Myth is blunt. Myth is old. It tells you what power looked like and what it cost. Hera became queen, crowned in her own right. She was not simply the spouse of a powerful god. She had power too, and a presence that could quiet a room. When she walked through the halls of Olympus, even the chattering gods tended to lower their voices. She carried the authority of tradition, the voice that says, "This is how it must be, if anything is to hold together." And yet, being the goddess of marriage did not mean Hera lived inside a happy marriage. Zeus, as you may already suspect, was not famous for staying faithful. He loved, he wanted, he chased, he changed shapes, and he left behind a trail of stories like footprints in wet sand. Hera did not ignore this. She did not pretend it did not hurt. In myth, her anger is one of the great fires of Olympus, bright, fierce, and sometimes misdirected. It is easy to call her jealous and stop there. But if you listen more closely, her anger sounds like a wounded sense of order. It sounds like a vow being treated as a joke. It sounds like a queen watching the rules of her own realm slip away. The Greeks were honest about their gods. They did not paint them as perfect. Hera could be protective and harsh, nurturing and vengeful. She could punish those who crossed a sacred line. She could also bless a household with stability and a safe birth. People prayed to her with real hope, especially women, who lived with risk in a world without modern medicine, where childbirth was both miracle and danger. To ask Hera for help was to ask for strength, for endurance, for the steady hand that keeps fear from taking over. One of the most famous stories about Hera is the tale of Io. Io was a mortal woman, a priestess, and Zeus desired her. To hide his behavior, Zeus turned Io into a white cow. It is a strange disguise, as disguises go. But he was panicking, and panic does not make great plans. Hera saw through it at once. She did not shout. She did not throw a thunderbolt. She simply asked for the cow as a gift. Zeus, trapped by his own lie, agreed. Then Hera placed Io under guard. She chose Argus, a giant with many eyes, so many that sleep could never fully close his attention. It is almost a poetic image, a watchfulness so complete it feels like anxiety made into a creature. Zeus sent Hermes, the clever messenger, to solve the problem. Hermes came with music and stories, and one by one, Argus's eyes grew heavy. When the last eye finally slept, Hermes ended Argus's life. Hera mourned him in her own way. She took Argus's eyes and placed them on the tail of the peacock, her sacred bird. If you have ever seen a peacock spread its feathers, those bright circles like tiny moons, you are looking at a myth turned into color. Hera did not forget. She remembered, and she made memory visible. Stories like this can sound cruel, but they also show how the ancient Greeks thought about the world. They saw it as a place where power had feelings, where gods could be wounded, where dignity mattered, where consequences followed actions even among immortals. Hera was a force of order, and when order was mocked, she pushed back. She was also a patron of queens. In places like Argos, great temples were raised to her, and festivals were held in her honor. In those sanctuaries, you can almost imagine the air incense drifting upward, the murmur of prayers, the soft shuffle of sandals on stone. People asked her not for wild adventure, but for the things that make life livable: loyalty, peace in the home, protection for children, respect for promises. There is another layer to Hera as well, a quieter one. She is often the only voice on Olympus that insists on boundaries. Zeus represents power and law, but Hera represents the bond itself, the shape of a vow, the idea that love should not be careless. In a world of myths where gods act on impulse, Hera stands for the slow, stubborn work of holding a life together. Sometimes she fails, sometimes she goes too far, but she never stops caring about the structure of things. There is a tale that shows her cleverness, too, not only her anger. Once, Hera grew so frustrated with Zeus that she joined with a few other gods in a quiet plot to bind him. It sounds almost impossible. The queen and her allies trying to restrain the king of thunder. But that is the thing about Olympus. Family arguments can become cosmic events. They caught Zeus off guard and tied him with enchanted bonds. For a moment, the heavens were strangely still. But Zeus was not alone for long. A giant with 100 hands, Briareus, came to his aid. And with those many arms, he broke the bindings and set Zeus free. The rebellion failed, and Hera was punished. Some stories say Zeus hung her from the sky with chains of gold and placed heavy anvils at her feet. Even in myth, it is hard to read that without feeling a quiet sadness. The gods are powerful, yet they hurt each other in ways that feel very human, like a marriage that has become a battlefield of pride. And still, after the anger, they return to their thrones. That is another strange truth of immortality. There is always more time to continue. And so they continue. Hera does not leave. Zeus does not change for long. The storm returns, and so does the stone. In their endless arguing, the Greeks saw something familiar, the way people can remain bound to each other, even when love is tangled with disappointment. Hera's sharpest stories often involve the children Zeus had with others. The most famous is Heracles. the strong son born to a mortal woman, destined for suffering and greatness. Hera tried to stop him before he even learned to speak. She sent 2 snakes into his cradle, hoping the world would be quieter without him. The baby, in the old telling, simply grabbed the snakes and squeezed until they went still. It is almost a dark little lullaby, a reminder that even in infancy, fate was already pressing in. Later, when Heracles grew into a man, Hera did not attack him with claws or teeth. She used madness, the invisible kind of violence that changes what you see. Under her influence, he harmed those he loved most. When the madness lifted, he was devastated. And then, in order to cleanse his soul, he performed his famous labors, task after task, each one like a long breath taken through pain. If you listen closely, Hera's role in that story is not only spite, it is also the force that pushes the hero to become something more than a creature of muscle. Without Hera, Heracles might have been only a strong man in a short tale. With Hera, he becomes a figure of endurance, guilt, and slow redemption. Greek myths often work this way. A cruel act becomes the shape of a lesson. A wound becomes a path. And then, at the very end of Heracles' life, something unexpected happens. After he dies and his mortal body is burned away, his divine part rises to Olympus. There, Hera does not strike him down. She accepts him. Some versions say she even gives him her daughter, Hebe, the goddess of youth, as a bride. Imagine that for a moment, the enemy becoming family, the long grudge finally loosening. Myth likes a tidy knot at the end, even if the thread was rough. Hera also appears in stories where she protects those she favors. She helped Jason, for example, because he showed kindness to an old woman on the road, not knowing that the old woman was Hera in disguise. In return, she guided him in his quest for the Golden Fleece, whispering support through the chaos. Hera valued respect, hospitality, and the simple decency of helping someone in need. It is comforting, in a way, to know that even a goddess known for anger could be moved by small kindness. Her symbols tell us something about her. The peacock, bright and proud, carries the memory of Argus. The cow, gentle and steady, speaks of nurturing. The pomegranate, full of seeds, hints at fertility and the cycle of life. In art, Hera often holds a scepter and wears a crown. She sits upright, composed, as if she cannot afford to relax too much. Because if she does, the world may slip. There is a quiet thought here for bedtime. Hera is the goddess of marriage, but not the sugary kind. She is marriage as it really is, a promise tested by time, by temptation, by fatigue, by pride. She is the part that says, stay. She is the part that says, remember what you vowed. She is not always gentle, but she is rarely careless. She wants things to mean something. And perhaps that is why she still lingers in the imagination. Not because we enjoy her cruelty, but because we recognize the ache behind it. The desire to be chosen, the desire for respect, the desire for order in a life that keeps changing. Hera is the goddess who reminds us that love is not only a feeling, it is also a structure, a home, a fence that keeps the wolves out, a rule that makes peace possible. So imagine again those marble halls. Zeus may be laughing loudly at one end of the table. Apollo may be plucking a neat song. Dionysus may be pouring wine into cups that never empty. But Hera sits with her shoulders straight, her gaze steady. She watches. She listens. She holds the line. And for you, here in your own quiet room, there is no need to fight tonight. Let the day be done. Let the worries that followed you around like small shadows settle in a corner and grow still. If your mind tries to argue, remind it gently that rest is not losing. Rest is a kind of vow too, a promise you keep with yourself. Imagine her now, not as a furious figure in a storm of gossip, but as a queen at rest. She sits in a hall of pale marble warmed by torchlight. A peacock steps quietly across the floor, its feathers trailing like silk. Hera's crown catches the light, not flashing, just glowing. Outside, clouds drift past the open arches, and the world below is very small. Somewhere on earth, a couple speaks a promise softly, as if they are afraid to wake the night. Somewhere else, a woman breathes through the long work of bringing a child into the world, and someone holds her hand. In the old imagination, Hera notices these things, not always with tenderness, but with attention. She is the watcher of vows. And as your own thoughts begin to loosen, as if the day is slowly untying itself from your shoulders, you can let Hera's steady presence be a kind of quiet guard at the door of sleep. Not a harsh guard, a firm one, the sort that keeps the noise out, so rest can enter. The torches on Olympus burn lower now. The banquet voices soften. Even the gods grow tired of their own drama. Hera remains, calm and upright, listening to the mountain breathe. And down below, in the mortal world, the night continues, gentle and wide, holding everyone in its dark. Careful hands. Outside your window, the night air is cool and kind. Let your breathing slow, in and out, like distant waves. Hera keeps watch in myth, but you need only sleep. Safe and quiet, let it all wait, and let sleep do its work softly. Let your mind float for a moment, as if it has stepped onto a calm sea at night. The day is far behind you now. The edges of your thoughts are softer. And in the old Greek imagination, when the world grew quiet like this, the ocean itself felt like a living presence, breathing in the dark. This is where Poseidon belongs. Poseidon, brother to Zeus and Hades, is the god of the sea, of earthquakes, of horses, and of sudden mood. If Zeus rules with light and thunder, Poseidon rules with weight. The sea does not flash. It presses. It rises. It pulls back. It returns again. And so does he. Like the other children of Cronus and Rhea, Poseidon was swallowed by his father, hidden away in that strange, hungry darkness. Later, he was freed by Zeus, and together the brothers fought the great war against the Titans, a long struggle that shook the world. When victory finally came, the cosmos was divided. Zeus took the sky, Hades took the realm beneath the earth, Poseidon drew the sea. It was not a second prize. It was a kingdom as wide as the horizon and as deep as fear. If you want to picture him, think of a tall figure with hair like storm clouds, tangled with salt and seaweed, and a beard that looks like foam caught in the wind. In his hand, he holds the trident, a three-pronged spear that is not just a weapon, but a sign of rule, like a key that fits every lock of water. When he strikes the earth with it, the ground can tremble. When he lifts it, waves can settle or rise. To ancient Greeks, the sea was not simply a background. It was a border and a road, a source of food and a cause of loss. A calm sea meant trade and travel. A rough sea meant wrecks, drowned sailors, and empty harbors. It made sense to them that a god would live there, one who could be generous one day and cruel the next, not out of evil, but out of changeable nature. The sea, after all, does not hold a single mood for long. Poseidon's own stories are full of that shifting energy. Sometimes he appears as a helper, building walls, shaping coasts, blessing horses, guiding ships. Other times he is the one who sends a storm because someone forgot respect, or because his pride was bruised, or because the rules of a bargain were broken. One of the most famous bruises to his pride happened in a city that would become a symbol of wisdom, Athens. Poseidon and Athena both wanted to be its patron. The gods arranged a contest, each offering a gift, and the people would choose. Poseidon struck the ground with his trident and brought forth a spring. It was impressive, but it was salt water, sharp and undrinkable. Athena offered an olive tree, simple and useful oil for food and light, wood for tools, leaves for shade. The Athenians chose her. Poseidon did not take it well. In some versions, he flooded the land in anger. In others, he sent a drought. Either way, the message was clear. Do not humiliate the sea. It remembers. The strange thing is, even with his temper, Poseidon was deeply worshipped. Sailors prayed to him before voyages. Fishermen offered thanks when nets came up heavy. Coastal cities built temples with their doors facing the water, as if the stone itself wanted to look out and watch for his approach. In Corinth, at the Isthmus, great games were held in his honor, and the sound of cheering crowds mixed with the crash of waves nearby. And then there are the horses. It seems odd at first, a sea god linked with animals that run on land. But the Greeks saw a kind of connection. The sea has white-maned waves. A wild horse has a white-maned neck. Both can be powerful. Both can be dangerous. Both can be tamed only with skill and respect. Some myths say Poseidon created the first horse by striking the earth, as if the ground itself had been waiting to gallop. He was called the Earth Shaker, and perhaps that shaking was also the beat of hooves. Poseidon's family life is calmer than his temper, at least by Olympian standards. He married Amphitrite, a sea goddess, one of the Nereids. At first, she fled him, and he needed a dolphin to persuade her back. The dolphin, as a reward, was placed among the stars. It is a gentle detail, a little thank you written into the night sky. Their son, Triton, is often shown as half man and half fish, blowing a conch shell that can calm the waves or stir them. But like many gods, Poseidon did not always stay faithful. and his many children filled myths with monsters and marvels. One of the most famous is Pegasus, the winged horse that sprang from the blood of Medusa after Perseus struck her down. Poseidon, in older stories, had pursued Medusa in a sacred place, and that detail lingers like a dark ripple. Greek myth often includes these rough edges. It is not trying to be polite. It is trying to explain why the world contains both beauty and harm. Poseidon also fathered Polyphemus, the Cyclops who appears in the story of Odysseus. You may remember that scene, the cave, the trapped sailors, the clever trick with the name Nobody, and the sharp wooden stake. Odysseus escapes, but in his pride he shouts his real name back at the Cyclops from his ship. It is a small moment of boasting, a human moment, and it carries a huge cost. Polyphemus calls to his father. Poseidon hears, and so Odysseus, who might have sailed home quickly after Troy, spends years wandering. Storms scatter his ships. Waves push him off course. Islands appear like dreams and then vanish again. Sirens sing. Monsters wait. This is Poseidon at work. Not with constant rage, but with relentless delay. The lesson is simple, and sleepy: do not taunt the sea, and do not taunt the god behind it. The ocean is patient. It can stretch a journey until it becomes a life. There is another story that shows Poseidon as a builder, not only a breaker. He helped build the walls of Troy, along with Apollo, in a time when gods still took on labor for a wage. When the king refused to pay, Poseidon remembered. Years later, he did not forget to help bring the city down. Again, the theme returns: respect the bargain, respect the boundary. The sea holds grudges the way deep water holds stones. Now, for bedtime, we can set the darker tales gently on a shelf and focus on the feeling of Poseidon as an element. Imagine the sea at night, smooth as black glass, the horizon barely visible. A ship moves slowly, creaking, lantern light trembling on the surface. Far below, the water is cold and calm, and in that quiet deep, a palace is said to shine. The poets pictured Poseidon's home as an undersea hall made of coral and pearl, where sunlight falls in shifting patterns like slow music. Sea nymphs glide past like soft shadows. Triton's conch echoes through distant caves, and Poseidon himself sits upon a throne of stone. Not because he needs a chair, but because a king must have a place to pause. He is not asleep. The sea rarely feels asleep. He listens. He senses the pull of tides, the movements of fish, the tiny tremble of distant storms. Above him, mortals cross the water in fragile boats, like little leaves on a vast breath. Sometimes he lets them pass. Sometimes he reminds them, gently or not, that the deep is older than any map. If you live far from the coast, you can still borrow this calm. Let the rhythm of your breathing become a tide. In, out, in, out. Let thoughts rise and fall without needing to hold them. The sea does not cling to a wave. It makes one, releases it, and makes another. Soon, the surface grows even quieter. The moonlight thins into silver. The last wind settles. Poseidon turns his gaze toward the dark water beyond his palace. and for once his temper is still. He allows the world to rest, and you can rest with it, carried gently on that ancient, steady current. The Greeks also called him the Earth Shaker, and it was not only poetry. When the ground rumbled beneath a city, when walls cracked and pottery fell from shelves, they imagined Poseidon stirring below, as if the sea had reached invisible fingers into the land. Earthquakes are frightening because they feel like betrayal. The ground is supposed to be steady. When it moves, everything you trust moves with it. To give that fear a name was, in its own way, comforting. If a god caused it, perhaps a prayer could reach him, and perhaps he could be calmed. Poseidon was also tied to the founding of cities. When Greeks sailed to new shores to build colonies, the sea decided whether they arrived safely. They saw Poseidon as a guide and a gatekeeper. A favorable wind felt like his permission. A sudden squall felt like his refusal. In this way, he became part of the story of expansion, trade, and the restless urge to travel. There are myths where Poseidon acts as a giver of signs. In one famous tale from Crete, King Minos asked the god to send him a bull from the sea as proof that he had the right to rule. A magnificent white bull emerged from the waves. Beautiful and powerful, Minos promised to sacrifice it back to Poseidon. But when he saw how impressive it was, he kept it and offered a lesser bull instead. Poseidon noticed. Of course, he always notices. As punishment, he made the bull wild, and he also stirred a strange desire in the queen, a desire that led to the birth of the Minotaur, the half-bull monster hidden in the labyrinth. It is not a gentle story, but it carries the same quiet lesson the Greeks loved. If you ask the gods for proof, do not lie about the price. If you make a promise, keep it. And for bedtime, you do not need to fear a bull rising from your bathtub. You only need to take the softer meaning, be honest with yourself, and let go of what is not yours to keep. Poseidon also appears in the myths of Theseus, the hero of Athens. Some stories call Theseus a son of Poseidon, born to the sea god and a mortal woman. Theseus proves his parentage by lifting a heavy stone or by diving into the sea to retrieve a ring thrown by Minos. Down in the water, he meets sea creatures and the shining halls of his father. It is like a dream of belonging, a moment where the world below accepts him. And then there is the side of Poseidon that is almost playful. He races chariots. He creates springs. He watches over sailors who treat the sea with care. In some tales, he even helps gods and mortals build, as if he enjoys shaping the world. Not only shaking it, he is not one thing. He is many things, like water. This is why the Greeks both feared and respected him. A simple fisherman might curse Poseidon when a storm ruined his nets, and thank him the next week when the catch was good. A sailor might offer a coin and a prayer before setting sail, and offer another coin when he returned. This was not hypocrisy. It was realism. Life changes from day to day, and so the gods in the stories changed with it. Now, as your eyes grow heavier, you can let the sea become a softer image. Imagine a long shore under a quiet sky. The sand is cool. The waves arrive and retreat, as steady as a lullaby. The water is dark, but it is not threatening. It is simply vast. It is simply there, somewhere out on that water, far beyond the reach of any lamp. Poseidon moves like a shadow beneath the surface. His trident is still. His palace is quiet. Even his seahorses sleep, their hooves folded under them like folded hands. And if the world above him is noisy, he does not need to answer every sound. There is a moment, late at night, when the ocean seems to hold its breath. The tide pauses between pull and push. The air feels smooth. In myth, that is the moment when the gods are listening, not speaking. Poseidon listens to the slow turning of the moon, to the small creaks of ships, to the faint footsteps of a traveler near the shore. If you are that traveler in your imagination, you can walk along the beach without hurry. You can leave no footprints that you need to explain. You can let the water take what it takes, the sharp thoughts, the busy plans, the old worries that keep returning. The sea is good at carrying things away. And as you drift, remember this: the ocean, in the myths, is not only a danger, it is also the space between places. It is the wide breath that lets stories travel. Without Poseidon, heroes would never leave home, and they would never return. Without the sea, the world would feel smaller, tighter, less full of possibility. So let the sea be possibility tonight. Let it be distance. Let it be the gentle idea that you do not have to solve everything in one day. You can cross one small stretch at a time. You can rest between waves. Soon, you may feel as if you are sinking, not in fear, but in comfort, like floating on your back and letting the water hold you. Deeper down, the world grows quiet and dark, and the sound of waves fades into a soft hush. And beneath even that hush, under rock and root and ancient pressure, another realm waits, not of water, but of stillness, a place where no tide rises, a place we will visit next, when you are ready to follow the story further down. Now we drift down, gently, the way a leaf drifts from a branch when the wind decides it is time. The sea above becomes a dim memory. Sound grows softer. Color fades to charcoal and pearl. Beneath the roots of mountains and the slow weight of stone, there is a kingdom the Greeks did not picture as flames and screams, but as quiet. This is the realm of Hades. Hades is the eldest of the three brothers. Born to Cronus and Rhea long before Olympus had marble halls or golden doors. Like the others, he was swallowed by his father, kept in darkness by fear. And like the others, he was freed by Zeus and fought in the long war against the Titans. But when victory came and the world was divided, Hades did not choose the sky or the sea. He accepted the land beneath the earth. He did not complain. He did not boast. He simply took the task that would never end. In later ages, people sometimes confuse Hades with evil itself, but in the older Greek mind, he was not a devil. He was the unseen one, the keeper of what comes after. Death was feared, yes, but it was also part of the order of things. Like night following day, Hades ruled that order. He did not hunt the living. He did not tempt them. He received the dead when their road reached its final bend. Imagine the entrance to his realm, not as a door of fire, but as a threshold of cool air. The light there is low, like the last glow after a candle is blown out. You can almost hear the hush of a cave, that steady silence that feels older than words. In myth, souls arrive with Hermes, the guide, who leads them without judgment. Hermes does not push. He does not pull. He simply walks with them, step by step, until the world above fades completely. At the riverbank waits Charon, the boatman. His boat is narrow, dark, worn smooth by countless crossings. He asks for a coin. The Greeks placed small coins with their dead, not as a bribe, but as a simple payment for the journey. Those without a coin were said to wander the shore, unable to cross, listening to the water but never reaching the other side. It is a sad image, but also a gentle one, because even here the rules are plain. Bring what you need. Do not arrive empty-handed. The underworld, in Greek thought, is not one room. It is a landscape. It is many layers, like a deep forest with paths that split and rejoin. There are rivers, and each river holds a mood. The Styx is the river of oaths, dark and heavy, where even gods swear promises they fear to break. The Acheron is the river of sorrow, slow and cold. The Cocytus is the river of lament, where the air seems to sigh. The Phlegethon burns without consuming, a strange stream of heat moving through darkness. And then there is Lethe, the river of forgetting, whose waters rinse the mind clean. Lethe is the one that feels most like sleep, not because it erases who you are, but because it loosens the grip of pain. If you have ever wished, late at night, that your mind could stop replaying old scenes, you understand why the Greeks imagined a river like this. They knew that rest often requires forgetting, at least for a little while. Lethe is a mythic way of saying, you have carried enough. You may set it down. Beyond the rivers, the dead are judged by three ancient kings, Minos, Rhadamanthus, and Iacchus. In the stories, they do not shout. They do not mock. They simply listen and decide. Most souls go to the Asphodel Meadows, a wide plain of pale flowers and soft gray light. It is not torture. It is not joy. It is a quiet drifting, like a long walk in fog, like a nap without dreams. A few, the wicked, go to Tartarus, the deepest pit, where punishment matches the crime, and a rare few, the noble and blessed, reach the Elysian fields, where gentle light returns and music seems to live in the air. Hades governs all of it with order. That is his nature. He is not loud like Zeus. He is not moody like Poseidon. He is steady. He is weight. If Zeus is the flash of lightning and Poseidon is the crash of waves, Hades is the stone beneath your feet, always there, always holding. He is also called Plauton, the rich one, because all hidden wealth comes from below. Gold in the earth, silver in the rock, seeds in the soil, the roots of trees. Even the future harvest begins in darkness. If you think of it this way, Hades is not only an ending, he is also a beginning, the keeper of the place where things rest before they rise again. You may have heard of his helmet too, the helm of darkness, which makes its wearer unseen. It is a fitting symbol. Hades works invisibly. We do not see the world under our feet. Yet it supports every step. We do not see the endings ahead. Yet they shape the value of each day. The unseen is not always a threat. Sometimes it is simply the background that lets life stand out. Of all his stories, the most famous is the tale of Persephone. The older Greeks called her Kore, the maiden, daughter of Demeter, goddess of grain and growing things. Persephone was gathering flowers when the earth opened, and Hades rose in a chariot, dark as nightstone. He took her down into his realm. Demeter searched everywhere, and in her grief, she refused to let crops grow. The world above began to wither. People went hungry. Even the gods grew uneasy, because humans are the ones who offer prayers and offerings, and the gods do not like silence. So a bargain was made. Persephone would return to the surface for part of the year, and spend part below with Hades. Thus the seasons, spring and summer when she returns, autumn and winter when she descends. Some versions say she ate pomegranate seeds in the underworld, and that those seeds bound her to return. It is a small detail, almost tender. A few seeds, a soft red fruit, and the whole turning of the year. In some tellings, Persephone is a captive. In others, especially in older mystery traditions, she becomes queen by choice, taking power in the dark realm and guiding the dead with calm authority. She learns the names of rivers. She learns the quiet language of shades. She becomes not a girl taken from her mother, but a ruler who can stand in two worlds. Above, she is the green promise of spring. Below, she is the steady crown of winter. However you read it, one thing stands out. Hades does not chase many lovers. He does not collect affairs like trophies. In the myths, he is faithful. His realm is enough. His crown is enough. His queen is enough. It is almost surprising, in a family famous for drama, to find a god who keeps his vows. There is another story that shows his fairness. Orpheus, the poet, came down to the underworld to plead for Eurydice, his wife. He played music so beautiful that even stone seemed to listen. Hades heard him. Persephone heard him, and they offered a chance. Eurydice could follow Orpheus out, but he must not look back until they reached the light. Orpheus agreed. He walked, hearing her footsteps behind him, wanting so badly to be sure she was there. At the last moment, fear and love tangled together, and he turned, and Eurydice slipped back like mist. And the rule held, as rules do in this realm. Even heroes came here, sometimes by accident, sometimes by daring. Heracles descended to fetch Cerberus, the three-headed dog who guards the gate. He did not steal him forever. He brought him up, showed him, and returned him. Because even in myth, Hades expects agreements to be kept. Theseus tried to take Persephone and found himself trapped, stuck to a stone chair in shame. In the underworld, pride does not win prizes. It simply becomes heavy. Cerberus is often described as terrifying, but you can picture him in a softer way tonight, not as a beast eager to bite, but as a guardian doing his job, like a large dog at a gate. 3 heads, 3 sets of eyes, watching the boundaries so that the dead do not spill into the living world, and the living do not wander down before their time. Boundaries can feel strict, but boundaries also keep things safe. The Greeks also carried a quieter hope about this realm. At Eleusis, near Athens, people took part in secret rites connected to Demeter and Persephone. We do not know every detail, because those who joined promised not to reveal it. But the feeling that survives is simple and human, that death is not only loss, and that something in us returns, like a seed returning as a sprout. In that belief, Hades is not a jailer. He is a keeper. He holds what is hidden until it is time for it to rise. When the Greeks honored Hades, they often did so at night, with smoke meant to sink downward rather than rise. They spoke his name softly, or avoided it entirely. Euphemisms felt safer. To call him was to invite his attention, and attention from such a god felt heavy. Yet even with fear, there was respect. The underworld was part of life. To deny it would be foolish. Better to bow your head and accept the road that all living things travel. One day, far in the future. But bedtime is not the time for dread. Bedtime is the time for gentleness. So think of Hades tonight as the god of stillness. He stands at the far edge of life the way night stands at the far edge of day, not to harm you, but to remind you that the world has rhythms, work and rest, light and dark, breath in and breath out. Picture him now in his quiet hall. The walls are volcanic stone, dark and smooth. The air smells faintly of myrrh and earth after rain. Torches burn low, not bright, just enough to mark the path. Shades move like mist in a valley. Persephone sits beside him, pale flowers in her hands, a calm crown on her brow. Hades holds a scepter as a sign of order, not as a weapon. No one screams. No one runs. The kingdom is steady. If your mind is restless tonight, you can borrow a little of that steadiness. Let the worries that rise like sparks settle like ash. Let your thoughts become slow, like a river in the dark. In the myth, Lethe washes memory into softness. In your room, your breathing can do the same. Breathe in through your nose, slow and easy. Hold it for a heartbeat, then breathe out, longer than the inhale, like you are fogging a window. Again, in and out. Let your shoulders drop a little. Let your jaw unclench. Let the muscles around your eyes soften. Nothing needs solving right now. Nothing needs proving. Like Hades, you can simply be here. If you like, picture the river Lethe again, not as something frightening, but as a gentle stream at the edge of your mind. Imagine dipping your fingertips into it and feeling the coolness move up your arm. With that coolness, let one worry dissolve. Maybe it is a small worry, a message you forgot to answer, a task you will handle tomorrow. Let it float away like a petal. Then let a second worry soften too. Something heavier, something that has been pressing on you all day. You do not need to fix it in this moment. You only need to rest. The Greeks understood that a person can be brave and still need quiet. They told stories of heroes. Yes, but they also told stories of returning home, of sitting by a fire, of being held by the steady parts of the world. Hades is one of those steady parts. He does not sparkle, but he endures. He is the pause between chapters. He is the deep breath before the next day begins. And remember Persephone, the queen who moves between worlds. In spring she rises, and the earth answers with green. In winter she descends, and the fields rest under a clean sky. Neither is wrong. Both are needed. Your own life is like that. There are seasons of doing and seasons of letting go. Tonight is a season of letting go. So let the night be a kind teacher. Let it remind you that you are allowed to stop, allowed to be quiet, allowed to be unfinished. The underworld in myth is not a place you rush through. It is a place of slow steps, measured rules, and calm shadows. Take those qualities with you now. Slow, measured, calm, and far below. The unseen king keeps his watch, not for you, not yet, only for those who have finished their journey. You are still here, still warm, still safe, still breathing. The underworld can wait. Tonight, you only need the comfort of its quiet. Let the earth beneath your home feel strong and steady. Let it hold you, the way stone holds a mountain. Sleep is not falling. Sleep is being held. And in the old stories, Hades is the god who holds. So let the darkness be gentle. Let it be a blanket, not a trap. Let it be the kind of dark that allows seeds to rest, allows roots to drink, allows the mind to loosen its tight grip. The halls of Hades remain quiet. The rivers keep flowing. And above, in the world of breath and heartbeat, you drift toward sleep, safe on the surface, carried by calm. Before we leave this quiet depth, notice how your thoughts are already slower, like pebbles settling to the bottom of clear water. They sink and grow still. In that stillness, a small spark of wisdom can return. Soon we will climb back toward the calm light of Athena, one soft step at a time. Now, very slowly, we begin to rise again. Not in a rush, not in a sudden leap, but like mist lifting from a valley when the first pale light touches the hills. The quiet depth of Hades stays behind you, steady and safe. Ahead is a different kind of calm, the calm of clear thought. Tonight we visit Athena. If the gods of Greece were a family, Athena is the one who brings order to the table. Not always warmth, not always softness, but a steady kind of clarity, like a lantern held low on a dark path. She is the goddess of wisdom, of strategy, of crafts, of careful work done with a patient mind. In a world of thunder and storms, she is the pause before the decision. Her story begins in a strange way, because Greek myth loves strange beginnings. Zeus, the king, once married Metis, a goddess of wise counsel, but an old prophecy warned him that Metis might bear a child greater than the father. Zeus, fearful of being overthrown the way he overthrew Cronus, swallowed Metis. He thought he had solved the problem. But wisdom does not vanish so easily. It waits. One day, Zeus felt a terrible pain in his head, a pain like a storm trapped behind bone. The gods gathered. They argued. They worried. And at last, Hephaestus, the smith, took an axe and split Zeus's skull. Out sprang Athena, fully grown, fully armed, a spear in one hand, a shield in the other, and a shout that rang across Olympus. It is one of the most dramatic entrances in myth. But notice what it says about her. Athena is born from the mind. She arrives complete. She is an idea made flesh. Yet she is not only about war. She is about the kind of war that uses thought instead of rage. The Greeks saw two faces of conflict. Ares was the roar, the blood, the wild charge. Athena was the plan, the formation, the careful move that ends a fight before it becomes chaos. She is the difference between a fist swung in anger and a hand raised to guide. Athena also loves craft, weaving, pottery, building, carving, even the design of ships and tools. She is the goddess of skilled hands guided by a quiet mind. Imagine a weaver at a loom, the steady rhythm of thread crossing thread. That is Athena's music. Not loud, not showy, but precise, patient, calming. If you have ever found relief in tidying a room, or lining up your thoughts on paper, or making a small plan for tomorrow, you have felt a little of her spirit. She does not ask you to be perfect. She asks you to be deliberate, one thing at a time, one step, then the next. Her most famous city is Athens, which took her name. There is a myth about how she became its patron. Poseidon wanted the city too. The gods agreed on a contest. Each would give a gift, and the people would choose. Poseidon struck the ground with his trident and made a spring rise, but the water was salty, like the sea, not very useful for a city on rocky land. Athena planted an olive tree. It was simple, practical, and generous. Shade, fruit, oil, wood, warmth, food, trade. The Athenians chose her, and the city placed its trust in thought. The olive tree is a beautiful symbol for bedtime. It grows slowly. It lives a long time. Its leaves shimmer softly in a breeze. It does not panic. It does not hurry. It simply keeps growing. Think of an olive grove at dusk. The sky turning violet. The ground warm from the day's sun. The air smells of dry grass and quiet stone. Somewhere, an owl calls, low and gentle. Athena's owl. Her owl is not only a cute companion, it stands for clear sight in the dark, wisdom that does not need bright daylight to see. The Greeks stamped an owl on their coins, a small reminder that thought has value, not loud thought, not anxious thought, calm thought. Of course, Athena could be strict. Wisdom is not always kind in the moment. One tale tells of Arachne, a mortal weaver who was so skilled, she boasted that she was better than the goddess. Athena challenged her to a contest. Arachne wove a tapestry so flawless it shocked even the gods. But she also wove scenes that mocked the gods, showing their mistakes and their cruelty. Athena, furious and perhaps also embarrassed, tore the tapestry apart. Arachne despaired, and in pity or judgment, Athena transformed her into a spider, doomed to weave forever. It is a harsh story, but it holds a gentle lesson too. Pride can tighten the mind like a knot. It can turn skill into strain. Tonight, you do not need pride. You do not need competition. You only need ease. Let your mind unknot. Let your thoughts be threads that lie down smoothly. Athena helped many heroes, but the one she favored most was Odysseus, not because he was the strongest, but because he was clever, patient, and good with words. Odysseus survives not by smashing every problem, but by thinking his way through. Athena guides him, sometimes in disguise, sometimes in a whisper, sometimes by placing the right idea in his mind at the right time. If you have ever had a sudden calm solution appear after you stopped forcing it, you know what that feels like. The mind relaxes, and the answer can finally arrive. Athena is also linked to law and city life. In Athens, people built her great temple on the Acropolis, the Parthenon. High above the streets, its columns still stand, watching the sea in the distance. But you do not need to see stone to feel what it represents. Structure, balance, a place for thought to rest. Festivals honored her too, like the Panathenea, with processions and athletic contests and a new woven robe presented to her statue. Imagine the quiet part of that festival, not the cheering crowds, but the careful hands weaving the robe, stitch by stitch, day after day. That is Athena again. The long work, the steady focus, the calm pride of making something well. She is sometimes called the maiden, not because she is shy, but because she is independent. She does not belong to a husband. She belongs to principle. She stands on her own. That independence can feel like a cool breeze. It reminds you that you do not have to be pulled by every emotion that passes through. You can watch emotions come and go like clouds. You can choose which ones to follow. There is a story about Tiresias, a young man who accidentally saw Athena bathing. She struck him blind, but then, in fairness, gave him the gift of prophecy, firm and fair. That is her style. She can be severe, but she also balances the scales. In art, Athena often carries a shield with the face of Medusa. It is a strange image for a goddess of wisdom, but it makes sense. Wisdom does not pretend the world is always gentle. Wisdom can look at fear without turning away. Wisdom can say, yes, that is frightening, and still keep walking. And for bedtime, that can be comforting. You can admit your worries exist, and still let them fade. You do not have to fight them. You only have to notice them, and then return to your breath. So, imagine Athena now in her hall on Olympus. She is not laughing loudly. She is not throwing cups. She sits with a scroll, reading the quiet record of human lives. Her face is calm. Her armor is polished, but she wears it like a tool, not like a costume. Her owl perches nearby, blinking slowly, content to be awake in the dark. Outside, the stars move in steady patterns, as if even the sky respects her order. Below, in the mortal world, someone draws a map, someone writes a letter, someone builds a small table with careful hands, someone studies by lamplight, eyes heavy, still trying to understand a hard thing. Athena is there in all of it. not as a loud voice, but as a steady presence. And here is the best part for tonight. Athena does not demand excitement. She does not demand drama. She invites calm attention. She invites you to set one thought gently in its place, like a book on a shelf, and then set the next one down, and then the next, until the shelf is tidy and the room grows quiet. So let us do that now. Take one thought, the one that feels closest. Place it on a shelf. You can come back to it tomorrow. Take a second thought. Place it beside the first. Smooth it down. Take a third. If you need to, then let your hands rest. Let your mind rest. The shelves can wait. The world can wait. In the shade of olive leaves, under the watch of an owl, with the steady calm of Athena near, you can drift, not into darkness like the underworld, but into a softer kind of night, where thoughts become gentle and slow. There is also a side of Athena that is easy to miss when people only talk about spears and shields. She is a goddess of justice, not the kind that screams for revenge, but the kind that tries to build a fair system. In one famous cycle of stories, a prince named Orestes was chased by the Furies, old spirits of punishment, because he had spilled family blood. The city shook with the tension of it. The Furies wanted endless repayment, an endless loop of pain. Athena stepped in and said, "Enough." She created a court. She asked people to listen, to weigh, to decide. When the vote was tied, she cast the final one, choosing an end to the chase, choosing a calmer future. In the myth, it is a turning point, a move from wild, endless anger toward rules and balance. And sleep is what we are doing now. We are letting the mind move from old battles into calm balance. Athena is also the goddess of useful inventions. Some stories say she helped create the first plow, the first bridle, the first ship design that could cut through waves without wasting strength. Whether or not those details are literally true, they show what the Greeks valued: clever tools, clever plans, a life made easier by thought. It is the same feeling you get when you find the simplest way to solve a problem and suddenly your shoulders drop, because the strain is gone. If you picture her workshops, do not imagine a loud factory. Imagine a quiet room with a window, a workbench, smooth wood, a clay pot turning slowly on a wheel, a chisel tapping stone in a gentle rhythm, the kind of sounds that steady the mind. Tap, turn, breathe. Tap, turn, breathe. It is almost like a lullaby, but made of work. And because Athena is born from the mind, she also reminds us of something kind. Your thoughts are not you. They are things you can hold, examine, and put down. A thought can be sharp. It can be heavy. It can be sticky, but it is still a thought. You can set it on a shelf and walk away. You can tell it, "Not now." You can let it fade the way ink fades on old papyrus. So let us return to that olive grove, the one near Athens, just outside the city walls. Night has settled. The stones are still warm. Crickets keep a quiet beat in the grass. The air is cool on your skin, but not cold. You can smell leaves, dust, and a hint of smoke from distant hearths. Above you, the sky is deep and clear. sprinkled with stars. If you listen closely, you can almost hear the city breathing. A distant hush of footsteps, a door closing, the soft murmur of a late conversation. Somewhere up on the Acropolis, the temple stands, columns pale in moonlight. It looks less like a building and more like a calm idea turned into stone. Straight lines, balanced spaces, nothing wasted. In that calm shape, you can feel Athena's presence, not as a person watching you, but as a mood you can borrow. And if you like small details, picture the owl again. It turns its head slowly, almost comically, then settles. The owl does not rush. It simply observes. You can do the same with your inner world. Notice the thoughts and let them pass. Notice the feelings and let them pass. You are safe. You are in bed. The day is done. Now, a gentle exercise, as simple as counting olives in a bowl. Take a slow breath in, and as you breathe out, count 1. Again, breathe in, and as you breathe out, count 2. Let the numbers be soft, not strict. If you lose count, it does not matter. Begin again at 1. The point is not accuracy. The point is rhythm. 1, out. 2, out. 3, out as you count. Imagine each number as a small stone set in a line, a path leading towards sleep. Athena would approve of a path like that. Simple, clear, step by step. If any sharp memory tries to interrupt, picture Athena lifting her hand, palm outward, not in anger, but in calm authority, and saying, later, not now. The memory can wait by the doorway. It does not get to sit on the bed with you. The bed is for rest. And when the mind becomes quiet, even for a moment, notice how pleasant that quiet feels. Like a clean room, like a table cleared after a meal, like a sky after a storm. This is the gift of Athena at bedtime. Not excitement, not drama, but clean, quiet space. Let the owl blink, and let you blink too. And when you are ready, we will follow the next sound that rises on Olympus. The faint pluck of a lyre, the first hint of dawn, and the twin lights of Apollo and Artemis waiting at the edge of sleep. In the soft hour before dawn, when the world is neither fully asleep nor fully awake, 2 lights move through the old stories. One is the first warm edge of morning. The other is the cool silver that lingers on rooftops and leaves. Apollo and Artemis, twins of Leto, brother and sister. Sunlight and moonlight, clarity and quiet. The myth begins on Delos, an island said to have once drifted like a raft on the sea. Hera, still burning with jealousy, had forbidden any land to shelter Leto while she was pregnant. No stable ground would welcome her. No city would open a door. But Delos, unrooted and wandering, was not bound by that command. It offered its shifting shore, and in that kindness the twins were born. Artemis came first. The stories sometimes say she grew quickly, calm and capable, and helped her mother through the second birth. Because of that, she became a protector of childbirth, a guardian of the young, and a steady companion to women at the edge of pain and courage. Apollo followed, radiant and golden, with a presence that felt like a clear morning after a storm. From the beginning, they were a pair, not rivals, but a balance. If you picture them tonight, let it be gentle. Artemis in a quiet forest, bare feet on cool earth, her bow held like a tool rather than a threat. She moves without startling anything, as if the deer already know her scent. Apollo in a sunlit courtyard, a lyre in his hands, his steps measured, his gaze bright but not harsh. He does not need to shout to be heard. The air seems to listen because it wants to. Apollo is often called the god of light, but not only the light that shines on skin, he is also the light of understanding. The Greeks linked him to music, poetry, healing, and prophecy. All the ways human beings try to make sense of life. When his lyre plays, the notes are not simply pretty. They feel like order, like the mind finding a clean path through confusion. His greatest oracle was at Delphi, where a priestess called the Pythia spoke in riddling phrases. Pilgrims came from far cities to ask about war, trade, marriage, voyage, and fate. They carried offerings, climbed the rocky slopes, and waited in silence for the answer. Often the answer was not simple. It twisted like smoke. But that too was a kind of wisdom. The future is rarely a straight road. Apollo did not promise comfort. He promised sight. Even so, at bedtime, we can take the softer side of his gift. Not prophecy, not fear, but the feeling of clarity, the sense that you do not need to solve everything right now, that some questions can rest. The sun will rise whether you force it or not. Apollo will lift the day when it is time. Tonight, you can let the questions sleep. Apollo is also a healer, and his son, Asclepius, became the god of medicine. In the myths, healing is never only about the body. It is also about the heart, the mind, the spirit that grows tired. Think of a small temple in the countryside. White stone, warmed by afternoon light. Inside, the air smells of herbs and clean water. Someone is lying down, breathing slowly, letting the body do its quiet work of repair. That is the kind of healing we want tonight. Not dramatic, not quick, but steady. Yet Apollo holds a paradox. As many gods do, the same arrows that bring healing can bring plague. In the Iliad, he sends sickness when dishonored. The Greeks understood that nature can be generous and severe. The sun can warm a field or scorch it. The lesson is not to fear the sun, but to respect it. And for sleep, respect can look like balance, warmth, but not overheating, light, but not glare, enough, but not too much. Now turn to Artemis. She is the goddess of the hunt, yes, but also of wild places and quiet boundaries. She loves the edge of the world, the line where meadow becomes forest, where day becomes dusk, where childhood becomes adulthood. Her temples were often not in the center of cities, but on hillsides, near springs, in groves where the wind moves through leaves like a whispered prayer. Artemis is independent. She does not marry. She does not soften herself to please anyone. In the stories, She keeps her own company: nymphs, animals, stars, the clean air of mountain paths. There is a kind of comfort in that. It reminds you that you do not always have to perform. You do not always have to explain yourself. You can be quiet. You can belong to yourself. Like her brother, Artemis can be fierce when disrespected. Actaeon, a hunter, stumbled upon her bathing, and she transformed him into a stag, and his own hounds tore him apart. It is a brutal tale, but its message is clear. Boundaries matter. Consent matters. Privacy matters. And in a softer way, it can help us at night. Your boundaries matter too. The day may have taken too much from you. Tonight, you can close the door. Tonight, your bed is your grove. Your thoughts do not have permission to chase you here. Artemis was also invoked in rites of passage. In places like Brauron, girls took part in rituals connected to her, stepping from one stage of life into another. The Greeks did not treat growing up as something that happens by accident. They marked it with ceremony, with song, with the steady presence of a goddess who understood liminal moments. If you are in a liminal moment tonight, between stress and rest, between busy and quiet, you are in good company. Artemis understands the in-between. Together, the twins form a circle. Apollo brings the day. Artemis brings the night. Apollo brings song. Artemis brings silence. Apollo is the open plaza. Artemis, the shadowed path. They do not cancel each other. They complete each other. Imagine them at the edge of the world. Apollo lifts the sun, and the sky blushes with pale gold. Birds begin to test their voices. Somewhere a village stirs. A latch clicks. A kettle is set on a fire. Artemis lowers the moon, folding it into the dark like a careful blanket. The stars dim, but they do not vanish. They simply step back. And now, because this is bedtime, let us borrow the calm parts of both. From Apollo, take the feeling of a clean morning that will come later. From Artemis, take the permission to be quiet right now. Let your mind be a sky that holds both a fading moon and a coming sun. You do not have to choose one. You can rest between them. If your thoughts are still racing, imagine Apollo plucking a single low note on his lyre, long and steady. Let it vibrate in your chest like a slow hum. Then imagine Artemis answering with the soft rustle of leaves, a sound so gentle you almost have to lean into it to hear. Rustle. Rustle. Let your breathing fall into that rhythm. Inhale slowly, as if you are drawing in the cool forest air. Exhale slowly, as if you are releasing it into a sunlit courtyard. Again, in and out. The twins keep their watch. The world remains balanced. Soon, we will return to Olympus again, not to shout or to fight, but to understand two more forces that live inside every life: the urge to break and the urge to build. For now, stay with the twins a moment longer. Let the last silver thread of moonlight loosen your brow. Let the first hint of dawn soften the corners of your mind. And as you drift, remember this simple truth. The Greeks wrapped in story. Even the sky takes turns. Even the light rests. So rest too. The forest is quiet. The lyre is gentle. The road between night and morning is wide enough for you to lie down and be still. long ago, when people lived close to stone and sea, they looked for signs in everything. A hawk circling once, a sudden stillness in the air, a dream that stayed vivid after waking. They believed Apollo could speak through these hints, not to frighten them, but to guide them. That is why Delphi mattered. It was not only a place of prophecy, it was a place where a worried mind could travel, ask a question, and feel held by ritual. The road to Delphi wound through valleys and up toward a slope of pale rock. Travelers came on foot, slow and dusty, carrying jars of oil, small statues, ribbons, and coins. They washed at a spring, stood in line, listened to priests chant, and waited. In the temple, the Pythia sat on a tripod above a cleft in the earth. Laurel leaves burned. The air smelled sharp and green. Then she spoke. Sometimes her words were clear. Often they were not. But even an unclear answer can bring calm, because it turns panic into practice. It gives shape to the waiting. Apollo loved Laurel, and the laurel came to him through a sorrowful tale. Daphne, a nymph who did not want to be caught, ran until she could run no more, then asked the earth for help. She became a laurel tree, rooted and still, safe in a new form. Apollo, aching with regret, made the laurel his sacred plant. He wore its leaves in a crown, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Even a god can learn that love without respect becomes harm. And a reminder like that, worn close to the skin, is a quiet kind of wisdom. There were festivals for Apollo too, bright and orderly. At the Pythian Games, athletes ran and wrestled, and musicians played. Victors were crowned with laurel, not gold. The crown was light. The honor was light. It did not weigh the head down. It whispered, "You trained, you tried, you endured, and now you can breathe." Even that is comforting. It tells us effort can be gentle, and reward can be simple. Artemis had festivals as well, but hers often felt like the edge of a forest at night. In some places, girls danced in her honor, and for a little while they stepped outside daily rules. They ran, they laughed, they sang. Then they returned, changed by the act of being seen by the moon. In Ephesus, her temple was famous, huge, filled with offerings. But Artemis herself was not trapped inside stone walls. She was also in the thin cry of an owl, in the cool stream water on your hands, in the moment you stop and listen. Some myths paint Artemis as harsh, but there is another side. She protected those who were vulnerable. She was asked to stand near sickbeds, near births, near wild places where people felt small. She was prayed to by travelers who walked alone, not for riches, not for fame, but for safe passage. There is something tender in that. A goddess of wilderness being asked to be a lamp in the dark. And then there is their mother, Leto. She is often forgotten, but she is the one who carried the twins, searched for shelter, and held her pain without rage. When you think of Delos, think also of a woman sitting on a shore, tired, hands on her belly, waiting for help that may not come. Then think of the island drifting close, offering itself the sea bringing a small mercy, the first cry of a newborn. Even in myth, gentleness appears. It is easy to think of the gods as distant, but in Greek life they were woven into the everyday. A fisherman might whisper to Apollo for clear weather. A mother might whisper to Artemis for a safe birth. A young person might whisper to both, asking for courage to step into a new life. These whispers were not loud. They were private, like the kind of prayer you make when you do not even know you are praying. If you have ever stared at a ceiling at night, thinking too much, you know the feeling. The mind wants answers. The heart wants reassurance. The body wants rest. The old myths do not solve everything, but they offer a companionable voice. They say, others have been afraid too. Others have waited too. Others have tried to find a way through uncertainty, and the sky still turned. The seasons still returned. The story still went on. So, let us make a small, simple ritual of our own. Imagine Apollo setting down his lyre for a moment, the strings still humming softly. Imagine Artemis lowering her bow, letting her shoulders relax. Imagine them sitting side by side on a quiet rock above the sea. They do not speak. They do not need to. The sun is not yet up, and the moon is not yet gone. The horizon holds them both. Now let that horizon become your mind. Wide, spacious. No need to chase thoughts. Let them pass like clouds. One thought comes. You notice it, and you let it drift away. Another thought comes, and you let it drift away too. Nothing needs to be solved tonight. The day can carry its own burdens in the morning. For now, you can rest in the in-between. And when you feel ready, when the story has done its quiet work, we will walk onward to meet two more faces of Olympus. One is the loud spark of conflict, the other the steady spark of craft. One breaks, one builds, and both, in their own way, can teach a tired mind how to loosen its grip. Stay easy. Let your jaw unclench. Let your hands fall open. If any worry returns, place it gently on the far side of the horizon and watch it fade. Apollo and Artemis keep walking their quiet circle above you, and nothing is required of you now. Breathe in for 4, breathe out for 6, and let sleep come closer, slowly. The marble halls of Olympus are never truly silent, yet there are hours when even the loud gods grow quieter, as if the mountain itself has asked them to lower their voices. This is one of those hours. The lamps are low. The air is warm with torch smoke and a faint sweetness, like honey stirred into wine. Outside, the clouds move slowly, and the stars seem a little closer. Tonight we meet two powers that pull in opposite directions. One is the sudden heat of conflict, the urge to rush forward, to win, to shout. The other is the steady heat of craft, the patience that shapes and repairs. Horus and Hephaestus. In stories, they do not often sit side by side, but in life, they do. Destruction and creation share the same world, sometimes even the same hands. Ares is war in its rawest form, not the careful planning Athena loves, not the clean strategy of a mind that thinks ahead. Ares is the surge, the clang, the red face, the pounding heart. The Greeks did not always admire him. They knew war too well to romanticize it completely. In their poems, Ares is powerful, yes, but also reckless, often hurt, often embarrassed, often outwitted. If you imagine him now, do not imagine him as a hero on a poster. Imagine him as a force, like a sudden storm over a calm sea. He arrives quickly, loud and bright, and then he passes, leaving wreckage behind. He wears bronze. He carries a spear. But beneath the armor, he is something simpler: impulse. And impulse can be tiring. It burns hot, and then it burns out. If your day has been full of impulse, of reaction, of feeling pushed, you may recognize him. Ares is followed by companions with names that feel like a knot in the chest: fear, terror, strife. That alone tells you what the Greeks thought war did to the soul. And yet, even Ares has a softer truth hidden in his stories. He is honest about what he is. He does not pretend that violence is noble. He is the reminder that when anger rises, it wants motion. It wants release. And the best release at bedtime is not a shout. It is a long breath. So we do something gentle. We take that heat and we cool it. Imagine Ares standing at the edge of a battlefield that is fading into mist. The noise is far away now. His spear lowers. His shoulders drop. The bronze is heavy. He realizes, for a moment, that even a god can be tired. He turns away from the fight and walks back up the mountain, each step slower than the last, until the storm in him becomes only a distant rumble. Now, beneath the halls of Olympus, below the polished floors and bright banquet tables, there is another kind of fire. It does not scream. It hums. It is the forge of Hephaestus. If Ares is the crash of thunder, Hephaestus is the steady crackle of coals. Hephaestus is the god of the forge, of smiths, of invention, of the patient work that makes civilization possible. His story carries pain. Some myths say he was born different, and in a world that worshipped beauty. He was thrown from Olympus. Others say he was hurled down during an argument. Either way, he fell, and he landed far from the glittering halls, raised by sea nymphs, learning to live with a limp and a mind full of ideas. And then he built, not to prove himself to the cruel, but because building was his nature. In his hands, metal became art. He made palaces of bronze, delicate jewelry, shields so detailed they seemed to hold whole worlds. He created clever devices that moved on their own. He made tools that helped other gods shine, even when they did not always thank him. There is comfort in Hephaestus. He reminds you that usefulness is not the same as being admired. That quiet skill matters. That the world needs people who keep showing up, who keep making, who keep fixing. If you have felt overlooked, if you have worked hard and not been praised, imagine the forge tonight, the glow in the dark, the sound of a hammer, slow and steady, like a heartbeat. At bedtime, we do not need the clang to be loud. Let it be gentle. Like a faraway workshop in a sleeping town. Tap, pause, tap, pause. Each tap is a thought being shaped into something simpler. Each pause is your mind resting. In Athens, Hephaestus was honored alongside Athena. And it makes sense. Wisdom and craftsmanship belong together. A city is not held up by ideas alone. It is held up by stone, by hinges, by nails, by pottery, by the careful hands that turn raw material into shelter and beauty. Hephaestus is the god of those hands. And now, with Ares quieted and Hephaestus steady, we turn toward another pair, softer in some ways, stranger in others. They are gods of thresholds. They live at the edge of rules. One loosens the mind, the other guides it through change. Dionysus and Hermes. If Hephaestus is the forge and Apollo the lyre, Dionysus is the cup, not simply the drink itself, but what it does to the walls inside you. Dionysus is the god of wine, yes, but also of release, of dance, of the moment when a person stops holding everything in so tightly. His birth is wild, as he should be. A mortal woman, Semele, loved by Zeus, asked to see the god in his full power, and the sight burned her. Zeus saved the unborn child in a strange act of care, sewing him into his own thigh until the time was right. Dionysus was born twice. That double birth made him a god who belongs to the in-between mortal and divine. Order and wildness, calm and frenzy, in the stories where Dionysus goes. Vines grow, panthers pad beside him. Women called maenads dance in the woods, hair loose, feet bare, their voices rising like wind through branches. It can sound frightening, but it is also about a human need to set down the mask for a moment, to stop being careful, to stop being polite, to stop being strong. At bedtime, we are not asking for frenzy. We are asking for release, a quieter release. Imagine Dionysus not as a roaring parade, but as a soft warmth in the chest when you finally exhale. Imagine him pouring a small cup, not to make you stumble, but to make you unclench. The day asks you to hold yourself together. The night allows you to loosen. The Greeks built theaters in his honor. That matters. Theater is a safe place for emotion. It lets grief speak without destroying you. It lets laughter rise without shame. It lets fear appear on stage, so it does not have to hide in your body. Dionysus is the god of that permission. But permission without guidance can turn into trouble. And that is where Hermes comes in. Hermes is the messenger, the traveler, the clever one. He moves between worlds, gods and mortals, living and dead, city and wilderness, waking and dreaming. He knows every road because he is the god of roads. Hermes was said to be quick from the start. As a baby, he stole Apollo's cattle and covered his tracks by walking backward. A prank so clever it was almost art. He invented the lyre from a tortoise shell and offered it as a gift, turning trouble into harmony. That is Hermes' mischief. Yes, but also invention, negotiation, the ability to slip through a tight place and come out smiling. And Hermes has a gentle job too. He guides souls to the underworld, not as a judge, not as a threat, but as an escort. He is the one who walks with you when you are crossing a threshold you cannot cross alone. That is a comforting image at bedtime. Sleep is a threshold. You do not force it. You approach it You step over it quietly. Hermes understands that. So imagine Hermes at your bedside, not in a frightening way, but like a calm traveler with a lantern. He is not there to rush you. He is there to show you the path is safe. He does not speak loudly. He simply gestures toward the dark and says, "This way," gently, one step at a time. Dionysus loosens what is tight. Hermes guides what is moving. Together they teach a tired mind something simple you can let go, and you can still be safe. Now, as we come to the end of our walk through Olympus, we visit a figure even quieter than the rest. She is not a storm. She is not a parade. She is not a battle or a clever trick. She is the steady warmth at the center. Hestia, goddess of the hearth. Hestia does not chase glory. She does not fling herself into dramas. She simply tends the flame. In every Greek home, the hearth was more than a cooking place. It was the center of family life, the place where stories were told, where bread was shared, where a traveler could be warmed. Hestia was the promise that no matter what happened outside, there could be a small inside that stayed safe. In city halls, too, a public hearth burned. When people founded a new colony, they carried an ember from the old hearth to the new. So the new place began with belonging. That is a beautiful thought. Belonging carried as fire, carefully protected from wind. Hestia was offered the first and last portion of many sacrifices, the beginning and the end, the opening and the closing. That tells you her role. She holds the frame. She keeps things from falling apart. She is the quiet yes under every loud no. She is the calm place where the body remembers it can relax. So imagine a hearth now, not a grand altar, just a simple fire in a stone ring. The flames are low. They do not leap. They glow. You can feel their warmth on your cheeks. The room is dim. Outside, the world may be cold or noisy or uncertain, but inside there is steady light. If your mind has been busy, bring it to the hearth. Picture each thought as a small twig. You place one twig on the fire. It catches, it glows, and then it becomes ash. The fire does not argue with the twig. It does not judge it. It simply transforms it, thought by thought. The pile grows smaller. The room grows quieter. And now, look back for a moment at the mountain behind you. Zeus in his high hall, Hera in her regal patience, Poseidon listening in the deep, Hades keeping his quiet order below, Athena thinking in her clear strength, Apollo and Artemis turning the sky, Ares cooling his heat, Hephaestus shaping his metal, Dionysus loosening the knots, Hermes lighting the path, and Hestia, steady at the center. All of them, in their messy human way, were mirrors for the people who told these stories. They were a way to name feelings, to make the world make sense, to say, yes, life is unpredictable, but there is pattern too, day and night, storm and calm, loss and return, work and rest. Tonight, you do not need to be a hero. You do not need to solve a riddle, win a war, or impress a god. You only need to rest. Let your shoulders sink into the bed. Let your breathing become slow and regular. Inhale gently. Exhale gently. If a thought comes, notice it like a cloud and let it drift. If a feeling comes, let it sit by the hearth for a moment, warmed, and then let it fade. The fire is low, the mountain is quiet, the roads are safe, the sea is calm, the underworld is orderly, the sky is turning, and you, here in this small human moment, are allowed to be still. Before you drift fully under, take one last slow walk through the senses, the way someone might circle a small hearth, not for drama, but for calm. Notice your forehead. Let it smooth. Notice the tiny space between your eyebrows. Let it soften, as if warmed by a nearby flame. Notice your eyes resting in their sockets, heavy, untroubled. Your cheeks, your mouth, your tongue. Let them all settle. Let your shoulders fall away from your ears. Let your arms grow pleasantly heavy. If your hands are curled, let the fingers uncurl a little, as if they no longer need to hold anything. Let your chest rise and fall like a quiet shore. Let your belly loosen. Let your legs stretch out, long and calm. If you like, count a few breaths. Inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again. Nothing forced. Just gentle counting that gives the mind a small task, so it stops inventing bigger ones. Now imagine Hestia's hearth again, and imagine that the flame is not only in a house, but in the center of you, a warm point, steady and safe. Each exhale is a tiny breeze that makes the flame lean, but not go out. Each inhale is a small gift of air that keeps it bright. Around that flame, picture the day fading like smoke. Conversations, worries, screens, deadlines, small regrets, even small victories, all turning into pale curls that rise and disappear. They are not gone forever. They are simply not needed right now. And if any thought insists on returning, speak to it kindly, the way you might speak to someone who cannot sleep. Not now. Later, you can rest. Then let it sit by the hearth until it grows quiet. The deepest comfort in these myths is repetition. The sun returns. The moon returns. Seasons return. Fires go low and are lit again. And you can return to rest too, even after hard days. So let the story end the way a fire ends. Not with a bang, but with a glow. Let the last image be simple, a small room, a gentle warmth, and you're breathing like a slow song with no words. Good night.